All right. Good morning and welcome. We're basically today talking about, I guess, how would I qualify this? The cross-border subprime battle show, I guess. We're talking about subprime in Canada and the U.S. And I thought it would be smart to really have a little bit of a clip from, believe it or not, and a panel we did at Used Car Week Toronto a couple of years ago. It was the first subprime panel they ever did in the Canadian market, because they said, hey, subprime doesn't exist in Canada, or that's what people thought. So this is a little bit of a clip. If you want to watch the whole interview, we had Kim was on the show. We had a gentleman from Approval Genie. We had Larry on, I believe. But it was a pretty interesting show anyway, interesting panel. Hey, if you missed us live, you can listen to us wherever you get your podcast.
Black book value. So if you have a vehicle that's black book valued at $20,000, well, they'll let you sell that car for 140% of that value, so $28,000. No, of the wholesale value. And depending on the lender, depending on the bank, they'll have guidelines based on. They'll have different rate charts that, the 2019 GMC Terrain might be worth $25,000, but with its mileage, it might be worth, it might be rough money, it might be worth $18,000. But some lenders will have different booking charts, so that, they'll give you up to 75,000 kilometers, and it'll still book extra clean. So you can use that number as opposed to the rough book value.
They're basically managing their risk. With dealers, with banks, they look at, first of all, what can the person afford, their debt to income ratio. How maxed are they on their credit cards? And then they flip it around on their side, because it doesn't really make any sense for a bank to lend you this much money, and if God forbid they have to take the car back, it's bad. So they're trying to protect themselves, but still make money because they do want the loans.
They're just mitigating their own risk, really. They don't want to own a car for 6 months on a default payment. So they finance 200% of the value of the car.
Who other than the folks up here has been in the business 5, 6, 7 years? Has everybody been in a long time? So everybody's seen the same phenomenon that we've seen. The banks are a pain in the ass. You have the nicest person you ever met in your life. Somebody got sick. They're in desperate trouble, and it's almost like you want to co-sign them for the car. And the bank's like, nah, I don't think so. And then when things get a little lean, they come to you with gifts. It's like the three kings looking at Jesus. So what can we do to make it?
I disagree completely with that. The banks have, since I started in non-prime in 2001, the ability to get a less than perfect credit customer approved in an ethical, profitable way is we've got a lot of opportunity out there with our lenders, and more new ones are coming up. And as we talk to them as dealers or your FSNs, as they talk back to the reps, word does go up what we need to see, and as much as possible without, they have to manage their risk, they have to run their business just like we have to run ours. But for the most part, if there's something that the lenders can do to book more deals for you, they will do it. And I don't know what your experience is on the retail side in terms of being able to pick up the phone and call and get some more assistance on a particular deal. I just look at my days.
So if you want to watch the whole panel, bear in mind that panel is a little dated right now because it's a couple of years ago. And the thing that was funny about it, retrospectively, is dealers were shocked there was subprime in the Canadian market. I know that's not news to the American dealers, but in the Canadian market, believe it or not, and I think we quoted at that point, I think it was about 25, 30% or something like that. I think it's increased, but we'll talk about it. So let's get into it. Here we go.
My name's Tony Lund. I'm the general manager of Fred Bean's Kia in Langhorne. I just wanted to take a minute to talk about Larry Feldman and Career Changers USA. Larry and I have been working together for about the last 12 years now, and anything I've ever needed as far as recruiting, training, Larry's been right there. Larry's got me salespeople, he's got me managers, he's got me technicians even through the toughest times in the industry, and he is just the kind of guy who's going to tell you exactly what's on his mind. He's going to tell you exactly what he thinks. But Larry also has the expertise to back it up. When he was in the dealership world, he was a top performer. And that's really important to my staff, especially as it pertains to training. A lot of people can come in and teach out a textbook, but Larry has real world experience dealing with customers, dealing with situations in dealerships that we go through on a daily basis and try to train on. But Larry's been through it, so he can really empathize with the people and tell you what's worked for him and maybe what way not to go. Larry is just always at a 10. I mean, his energy level is always up there. And I think people, they just love that and they feed off of it. He's not faking it. He is genuinely excited to come in and help you. He's excited to come in and help grow your business. And he's one of those people who just really enjoys seeing dealers succeed and have a lot of fun at the same time.
Hi. Life is about connection. Having a support system to lean on. And roads to endless possibility. At every turn, guiding the way, we are building the connections that move you.
So what would your dealership feel like if your entire sales staff was literally on fire, your sales and service staff? They were nonstop all over social media, completely dominating your marketplace. They could do it in 30 days or less and then continue their education to do it for an entire 6 months or a year. You literally would completely take over the entire marketplace and no one would be able to compete with you. And that's what we can do for you. So when you're walking around your community, whether you're at local restaurants or you're going to the gym, you don't want to be bothered? Fine, you won't be bothered. But a lot of people will walk up to you and say, oh my God, I love your social media. Your staff is amazing. We love what you're doing in the community. We want to come buy a car from you. We want to get an oil change at your dealership. Your community is absolutely going to love you. And it doesn't matter what platform you're on. You could be on TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, all social media platforms. You will literally be all over the place. And not only will you have ads running, but your own staff is going to be promoting your brand and promoting themselves within the dealership and within the business. So it's like running an ad times 100-fold because your entire staff is participating in the process. I've traveled all over North America. I've trained Toyota. I've trained Nissan. I've been to driving sales. I've been to Women in Auto. I get hired as a speaker for conferences at universities all over the country. And I can help change the trajectory of your dealership right now.
Good morning and welcome. So we're going to start with an introduction. And usually we go by who showed up first. I'm going to go with Kim. So Kim, maybe you can tell us a little bit about you and what you do, and then what you think about the state of subprime in 2024. What is your thought?
So Kim McPherson, I've been in auto since '96 and started a subprime training company in 2005 and have been helping dealerships set up and optimize their non-prime department since then. Also an auto retailer, and so I'm in the grind of it every day. Most of our training that is done hands-on. So we're very familiar with the current marketplace and what's happening in non-prime today. I would say the biggest, what's the state of subprime? Bad. It's bad. It's very bad. It's good. It's good. It's good if you know how to really, run that department. It's a additional profit center for a dealership, and so that's good. You just have to figure out what is the proven process that you can implement. And subprime also, is going to allow a dealership to stop wasting time selling vehicles that don't get delivered. And I've been saying this loud and proud since about 2002, when I had my first non-prime customer, that in my very young experience at the time, I didn't think that credit was going to get better. And I hate to say it, but I was right. So here we are in probably the worst both of our countries have ever seen. I don't know, in the States if it's as bad, but yeah, we're at about 40% plus, I would say, of your customers that have less than perfect credit call, clicking, or walking into showrooms today.
Yeah, I mean, I think we were talking at that panel. I think it was 25%. I think was back then. That was 3 years ago. So, and the dealers fell out of their chair. They were like, "Yeah, 25%. I'm missing out." Now it's way bigger. So definitely a big opportunity. Thanks for that, Becky. Go ahead.
Well, guys, first of all, thank you so much for the invite. It is certainly a pleasure to be on your show. Thank you again. And I got to tell you, I absolutely adore Kim. Kim's right on when it comes to subprime, and she makes me feel like I might know what I'm talking about. And so years back when I had a chance to meet with Kim, I'm like, okay, there's someone in the same court I am. And so we compared notes, and I, like Kim, 2002, when here in the States, I was staying at a Toyota dealership in Annapolis, Maryland. We have subprime credit. And they were looking at me like I had 10 heads. And they said, "Becky, don't you know? We don't have subprime credit here. It's Annapolis, Maryland." Well, it turned out they had plenty of subprime credit. And we today, as Kim pointed out, unfortunately, we have an increase in subprime credit. In fact, more than 50% of customers here in the United States have a zero or a thin credit file. And, more and more dealers will have to figure out ways, processes. And she hit the nail on the head. How are we figuring out processes to impact and put customers on the right card that they qualify for based off of their credit criteria and budget? And we need to get to this sooner rather than later. Back in the day when it was like, put the customer on any car will do. We'll feel good about it and try to mastermind around those headaches. And today, what floors me is that we still have dealers here in the States that swear they have no subprime credit. And if in fact they have no customers who have subprime credit coming into their stores, and here's what I would say about that. If in fact they did, chances are salespeople were probably brooming them rather than they would rather walk over coals than to go ahead and take a subprime deal to the desk. So here we are today.
Interesting.
And
Yeah.
it's, like I said, pleasure.
Yeah, I mean, interesting when you look at it. And I remember I worked at a Honda store retail, and we had, at the time, this was almost 15 years ago. At the time, we might have had about 10%, I think, in Richmond, which is near Vancouver, heavy Asian market. But a lot of those we were dealing with by either doing in-house leasing or we're doing large money down deals. They did know how to deal with them, but they weren't really focused on it. So I guess my question there is, how does a customer who or a dealer who says, I don't know how to deal with that. How do they deal with it? Like on the front end of it, as opposed, as you just said, grooming the customer, what should they be doing? How should they be training their salespeople to deal with that? So whoever wants to go first.
I'll let Kim. Kim, go ahead, and then then I tag team Kim. Go ahead.
So, I'll answer that question this way. I think for years I've talked about bad credit, subprime, less than perfect credit customers. Now it's just a different way to buy. Most people today would love to have the opportunity placed in front of them to purchase a vehicle finance first, the same way you purchase a house. They are very expensive purchases. So preparing sales managers to be able to lead a sales team and prime finance managers in a direction that is, we may have customers that for 3 reasons might want to purchase their vehicle or shop for a vehicle finance first. They may want to shop for a vehicle finance first because A, they have bad credit, or they think they have bad credit. Or B, they have a very tight budget that they would like the dealership to be respectful of. Instead of the old hat of, no, don't talk price, up to as much as. No, some people just have a budget, and we should probably just listen to that budget. And when we can land somebody on a vehicle that actually matches their budget, why would we not do that, right? So, and then the third reason is simple convenience. Let's cut the BS out of the old school way of selling vehicles. And the finance first process allows us to do that. It's a simple needs analysis. Let's get the customer pre-approved. And then that way we can match them to vehicles that meet their needs, lifestyle, and desired budget that they will be approved for. Imagine that. It's really in most dealerships today where I start training is just having the staff simply listen. Let's just start with, I'm not sure if I can get approved, and take that person, be able to say the words, no problem. We have a finance first process here. Let me introduce you to so-and-so, who's the finance manager. Let me get pre-approved, and that way I can show you vehicles that match your needs, lifestyle, and desired budget. Does that sound like a good idea? And usually they say, yeah, that sounds great. When did dealerships start doing that? Ooh, jump in that.
What a concept. As opposed to quoting payments online and hoping that works out. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we don't even have to ask anymore. Like the old school way used to be, how would you rate your credit? Good, bad, somewhere in the middle. Now most times customers are like, what's the payment on that? What's the payment on that? Well, in order to work out a payment, we're going to have to know what interest rate you qualify for. Do you know? No? Well, let's find out.
Sounds simple to me. Is that something people get, or are they still struggling with that?
Is
that something dealers get, or are they still struggling with that?
The customers get it. This is the hard part. The customers get it. It's the dealers that want to push on it because they don't want to change. That's what I think.
Oh, okay.
But the dealers that get it, it's like there's a Honda dealership I'm doing business with now, and the non-prime manager called me after we did the sales training. And he's like, "Oh my God, Kim, there's a lineup outside my door. The customers are waiting to see him in chairs."
Oh yeah,
chairs.
Yeah. Like a doctor's office, right? There's actually people that might need this service. I don't know.
They were like, "I guess we were wrong. We do have non-prime customers." Yeah, no shit. I didn't bring them with me on the airplane.
Thanks for that, Becky. What do you think? I mean, I know there's dealers that do this, but go ahead.
It just, Kim again, she hit the nail on the head, and that's exactly what it is. It's show and tell. It's having a better understanding of your marketplace and being able to identify and respond appropriately. And, one of the things that dealers need to wrap their head around, there is easier ways to do this. There's technology today that we can utilize to impact those results. Streamline comes to mind, Promax comes to mind, but you have to utilize these widgets, if you will, as part of your everyday process. So it is about identifying customers sooner rather than later. AutoNation, CarMax for what they're utilizing is technology to be able to determine customer credit criteria and payment as early as possible to assure that that customer can not only afford, again, it matches their credit criteria on a soft pull analysis, which does not interfere or cause a hard inquiry. It only just makes it simple to be able to provide these customers with the tools rather than dragging customers through the mud, putting customers on the car that they likely won't qualify, to a point where even a sales associate, we have to wrap our heads around this. The sales associate isn't going to beat themselves up relentlessly, knowing that a desk manager will only ask them to go get a real customer. I mean, it's nothing but frustrating. We go up to the desk, can't you get yourself a real customer? Well, boss only spent 2 hours with this customer test driving them on vehicles they likely can't get approved for. So we wonder why we have this cherry picking going on in dealership. And as Kim mentioned, we want to be able to flush that out. We want to be able to utilize every sale to impact every unit we have on our lot to fit that customer in, to be able to not only sell more cars, get customers in our ecosystem, and impact performance across the board. But it takes process, it takes understanding, identifying earlier on, utilizing this technology to make everyone's life that much easier. It's everyday business. It's everyday sales. Every deal matters 100% of the time.
Oh yeah, I mean,
It just is that simple.
I mean, I remember working at I think it was a Chrysler store years ago, and they had people that specialized in this on the sales side anyway. And what they would do is constantly sell and unsell vehicles. They'd like show a vehicle and they'd go back and they'd be like, oh no, they can't get bought on that one. Then they go and they'd show them something. It was like the craziest process I think I've ever seen. I was like, why don't you just see what you have that makes sense? And it was like the salespeople were trained in this, so they would just sell and unsell like continuously. It was like what do they call those things? A Ferris wheel or something. It was nuts. I was watching it going, this makes no sense at all. Anyway, so if you get this right, if you treat the customer right, and probably this will work not just with non-prime or subprime customers, but with regular customers. How difficult is it to implement this and other changes to make sure you're ready to go with this? What do you think? How hard is it? Because we know people like change.
Can we get technology to do it?
Can we get AI to do this for us?
Again, here's the thing. And, the technology's there. It's just getting everyone to utilize it and implement it in their everyday business practices. What's difficult for me to understand is when you have inventory where this can identify the right inventory for the right customer based on the customer's payment and PTI and budget, it only stands to reason, why wouldn't I utilize that technology? And yet we have desk managers that fight it.
Yes.
That don't see the benefit in it. And it's too easy. It's why wouldn't I utilize it? Well, I know my inventory. You don't know it as quickly as what this can identify it.
That's right.
Hey, if you miss us live, you can listen to us wherever you get your podcast.
Yeah, and it can make it that much easier.
You hit the nail on the head, Becky. It's like I find here in Canada, rolling out the technology for some of the tech companies, and maybe they don't do. I find that they don't do the auto sales speak, maybe. So it's very. It looks like another something else we have to learn. It's going to be, but the reality is there's technology exactly that does that. You put the approval in, you even backload your deal, you run it through the inventory, and in like 2 seconds, 3 seconds, ours is, Auto V, I believe, has the most advanced one right now here in Canada, I think. But they just match it right to the inventory that's, and even specify if you're in an auto group, match it to the inventory that's sitting in front of me, match it to the inventory that we have in the whole group.
Right.
Yeah, it's hard to, and why wouldn't you? I don't know. I don't know. And especially in non-prime right now, where I was just saying this to, actually, it's been a big conversation all over LinkedIn too. Anybody who's a non-prime, are you guys dealing with the numbers that we're dealing with? We can't seem to get anybody approved. You're right. It's like, last year people were getting approved. This year, people are not getting approved. So if you're going through 100 leads when you used to close 10 on 100, now you're going through 150 or 200 leads. Like, people are, it's a bad state out there. So you got to move fast. And if your dealer is getting you technology so you can move faster, you're just going to win more sales and make more money and sell more cars.
Exactly. So AutoNation isn't, I mean, they weren't born yesterday.
That's right.
They know how to go ahead and feed the beast. And so they're making it so much easier for a consumer to be able to identify their credit criteria and determine the best type of vehicles that they could afford. And also CarMax, same deal, same difference. How much easier is it? And it's like goes against anything and everything that we all believe in. Whatever you do, don't talk about payment. Whatever you do, don't talk about this or that or the other. And, I can say back in the day, I would often say, we'll talk about payment once a customer gets into the F&I office. Well, today, let's go ahead, let's master some of this. Let's get ahead of this sooner. And that way we'll be able to dictate what vehicle is likely the best for this customer as it pertains to not only budget, but also what the lender will buy. But it just takes different thinking, pivoting, right? So recently, and maybe some of you may not know, but I went with a company called Agora Data. And what's interesting about Agora Data, I'm now the VP of strategic client relations. And so I have dealers throughout the country that I'm working with and hopefully educating them on the subprime and how it can impact sales and become that difference in or the taking place of some of the profit gap that they're not able to take advantage of today. But interesting enough, with Agora, it is more of a AI driven, and which means it's much more strategic in how they view if the customers go, their how they're going to pay and the performance of the loan. So it's more adaptable to certain criteria from the customer. So we're actually ending up picking up incremental business that some of these other subprime lenders are not picking up. It's creating a new way of looking at how to work that subprime business. But more than that, it's allowing dealers to also take advantage of the additional dealer profit, loan profit that's earned on the backside. So there's a lot going on there, but it does help dealers to pick up on that incremental business that they're likely not getting approved with other lenders. So I'm really excited about it. And, subprime to me has always been very special. And, when I went to Canada and I was training at some tech dealer services, and I would talk about subprime, they would look at me like I had 10 heads and said, Becky, we don't have subprime credit here in Canada. And I think I met you, Kim, maybe a year into that.
Yeah.
And you told me otherwise. You said, Becky, there's plenty of subprime credit here. So it's really about educating yourself, right? And understanding the market and how you can impact sales and profits.
Yeah, I guess that's another question, specifically on the Canadian side. I mean, I know Agora, they have a wide network there. Are you seeing, Kim, are you seeing new companies enter? Are you seeing companies expand? Or are you just seeing less choice in the Canadian market in terms of lenders?
There's a lot of, lenders are going and coming and getting absorbed by bigger lenders. I think we're going to see more and more of that. There hasn't been very many new come up in the last like 2-3 years, but I feel like before that, right before COVID time, there was a lot of like, boop, 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 everybody wanted to be in non-prime. Everybody was in the non-prime business all of a sudden. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I feel like, if we take a look back to like, I don't know if it was '05 or '06, maybe even 2007, when it was like there was this influx in non-prime lenders, and then you saw the TDs absorb up VFC, and Scotiabank absorbed up Travelers, and we saw that, and then Carfinco and Santander over the years. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen, but I think the big banks are seeing the value in non-prime, and I apologize because I don't know where this came from. I should probably find out and then let you guys know. But there was a recent poll that was done, or a study that was done. No, I'm speaking out of term. It was about the repayment history in non-prime was better than in prime, and this was like last year. I should look that up, and I'll find it and send it in. But I was just like, and then I was like, no, that seems to make sense, because your non-prime customer, they can't afford to be missing their car payment. I mean, like, car payment done, car's gone, can't get to work. I mean,
Yeah.
it goes way down from there.
So that's another thing that I think people don't understand about non-prime that we've talked about before is not only is that an opportunity for them to make money selling that car and helping that customer out, but it's also an opportunity a couple of years later when that customer makes payments and has a track record to help that customer out again. I mean, I think that's another thing that, when they use tools like in-house leasing might help there, but, our self-financing, I know some deal groups in the US do that in-house. With their own money. But, I think as you look at the ownership cycle of cars in North America growing because of cost of vehicles, subprime's another opportunity to go, hey, if that person makes a payment, as you stated very well, 2 or 3 years later, you could definitely call them up again and say, hey, what if we can get you into another car with a lower payment? Is that something you'd want to do? So there's a reason to make that call.
So I'd like to go ahead and talk a little bit about that. That you hit the nail on the head again. I mean, that's exactly right. Because what we want to be able to do is dealers have to look at this as retention. It's a retentive piece that belongs. It is not just so profit at point of sale. And I keep telling it, it's not just about that. I mean, we've got to turn lights on and get that. But it's also about beyond profit, beyond the point of sale, and keeping that customer in our ecosystem. So when that customer is coming back 2 to 3 years, and that's what you want to encourage. You want to encourage a 2 to 3 time period when that customer is back in and buying another vehicle at better terms that would be available to them. But that's keeping your own customer, because at the end of the day, we all fall prey to a lender. A lender, let's face it, it really is whether or not it's all about our destiny, right? They control the destiny of our success. We have to do a better job in controlling that, understanding their guidelines, understanding cost of sale. One of the things that I also want to point out, for years here in the States, there were a lot of dealers, and still today, you're right, Ann, about in-house financing. Yeah. You got some of these bigger dealers who understand in-house financing. Now, I will say this. I grew up and working in some of the bigger stores. We did the in-house financing, and if the customer could fog a mirror, they were being delivered. Come heck or high water, we're delivering cars today, Becky. We're going to make this happen one way or the other. Yeah. But that put a tremendous amount of risk on the books, right, for these dealers, and they're like, uh-oh, now what do I have? So I will say, I'm not trying to come out as a pitch here with Agora, but I will say what's major interesting, and Kim, I'd love to talk to you more about this too, but I'd love to, because I'd love to pick your brain, because you and me are just always on the same, we're at the same place. So with Agora, though, there's no recourse. There's no risk. So the capital that the dealer is, the advance or the capital that they're getting from Agora, there's no recourse on it. So it takes away that risk. We've streamlined the process. It's integrated with DealerTrack and Route One. So that way, no change to a dealership operation. It's really cool how they've been able to synergize put this together. But on the other hand, a dealer is when they do in-house financing, they're utilizing their own capital. And there's risk on that. There's assets on that. There's something on that. They're paying somehow, some way. Whereas this, again, they're building their own portfolio by using Agora's capital, which is totally unheard of. It's very unique and it's exciting. Yeah. Will the dealer have, is there a potential where they might actually there's more profit maybe being generated on one subprime deal versus another? Could be. But again, it's all about cost of sale and what makes more sense. Would be make more sense to earn $500 more on this deal or $500 less for $7,000 to $10,000 of additional loan profit beyond the point of sale. And we're all talking about the importance of beyond the point of sale and being more retentive in our understanding of that sale. So I just think it definitely goes hand in hand.
Yeah, I mean, when you
I
look
just had to make that point because he's so right. Ian's so right when he's talking about dealers are looking for different ways to strategize, and you have to make a difference, right? To make a difference in that what you call profit gap, right? And that's I tell you, this is the third profit engine. Dealers once they can switch on the light, and it's switching on the light. It's pivoting, thinking a little different can make a big, big difference. Imagine in 3 years' time with that book of business, you're sitting on $2 to 3 or $4 million in a portfolio simply by carving out some of that subprime you're sending to somebody else.
Oh yeah, I mean, when you look at Kim initially when she was talking about training dealers, and then she got into the car business herself because she's got so frustrated. A lot of it obviously is tools, but also a lot of it is just the infrequency or the inability or unwillingness to change. But when you look at the opportunity, whether it be in-house or whether it be captive finance or whether it be self-funded or whether it be other lenders, I mean, what has changed for you, Kim, is you've sort of seen that from both sides now and saying, hey, are you still in agreement there with the tools and everything that you were before that? I mean, what's changed for you? I mean, I'm just curious.
Do you mean like what's changed as far as the tools?
Well, yeah, like
today?
before you just tried to train the dealer and they were like, yeah, we're not doing that. And then you're like, yeah, okay, let me just do it myself because clearly like they weren't listening.
Yeah.
So does that change the way now that you have those conversations with dealers where you go, okay, not only am I training this, I actually have dealerships. So I do this every day myself. So I know it works, but here's why you should do it. Does that change the conversation and their ability to do it?
Not real. I mean, so when I started training, I was a dealer.
Yeah.
And then my training went very hands-on. And then when I got back into the dealer side of things, it was more in the online process. So, which is where most of our customers are at right now. That's why you see the big CarMax and the technology and really pushing people to be able to make their own transition, make their own purchase, the whole way through online. I think that some dealers are just going to be late to get at it. I think the pain threshold for them has got to be, the dealer group that I'm at right now, they got to a pain threshold where they were like, okay, we cannot ignore this anymore. We are losing too much opportunity. We can see it every single day. If we sell 10, we lose 3. So we got to do something, and we're willing to do whatever we got to do. And then I get the call. Or I get the call and it's the forward thinker thinking, you know, nobody else is doing this in my neck of the woods. You know, I heard in my 20 group, somebody's doing non-prime. We're going to get in that and we're going to get ahead of the game. And I still feel like dealers come at me at both of those two angles right now. I don't know if I'm answering the question exactly, but from my standpoint, my process has always been, well, I mean, not to get into a whole other subject matter, but if I don't let my feet do the talking, nobody's listening to me anyways, because
You're just not out there doing that. So they're asking different questions though than they were.
You better be doing it, otherwise nobody's listening.
But they are asking different questions now. It sounds like than before. It was like, I don't know about this non-prime or subprime. Now it's like, well, yeah, I know about it. I just don't know what I'm doing. I mean, are they just asking different questions?
Anybody ever says, well, that's not true. There's some humility now out there, but it's you know, it used to be, I'll give you an example. It used to be that I would deal with a lot more, and you know, and now, quite frankly, I like to, and I always have picked my clients. You know, there's just me. So, and there's a lot of dealers. So if you're not really invested in the solution, then I'm not really dealing with that client anyways. You know, this is the solution. You need a proven process. You know what I mean? We need to train your entire staff because you have to make a cultural shift if you really want to change the problem. You need leads, and you need them before they're declined. So you got to be prepared to invest in bringing in leads so that your non-prime people can flex their muscles while the rest of everybody else gets on side, right? And we can prevent the declines from happening. But if you don't have those three things working, you know, and the right tools and technology, then, you know, it used to be back in the day, it would be, well, Kim, you know, we want you to come in and teach the process, but you're going to teach our process, and we're not going to get any leads, you know. And oh, by the way, we don't have the right car. And I'd be like, well, let's just shake hands and part as friends, shall we? That's so good.
So we want to do this, but we don't want to invest in the ball and the bat and the ballpark and any grass. But we're hoping you can magically make this happen.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, really, and I've always I got into non-prime because of a real problem that I had with a real live customer, and I just felt shitty about the whole situation, you know. And I was told, go tell that guy he's not approved. I said, I'm never doing that again to another human being. It's just not going to be how I play ball, or I'm getting out of this business. And so when I'm dealing with a dealer, I have a real passion for who they should care about, which is their customer. And I really want to solve that problem for them, for their customer. And the result of that will be good. It'll be good for business. It'll be good for money. It'll be good for their customers. It's just good all around. But if they're, you know, if they're not ready for it yet, then that's okay too. I tend to move on. That's all.
Fair enough. Becky, what do you think? I mean, ownership asking questions and the questions changing, and do you think that there are, you know, dealers who really get it and want to do it, or there some of them are just still not sold on it? I mean, what do you think? The questions changing?
I got to tell you, see, this is Kim's right. She's absolutely correct.
I paid her to say all that.
I'm telling you. That's why I said, Ian, get Kim on here with me, would you? It just makes my life so much easier. But you know, you can bang your head up against the wall so many times, and you know, the thing is, it's got to be a pain. It's a pain point. It's like, enough is enough. I can't do this anymore. And frankly, I've got to figure this out, or I'm going bust. Something's got to give. And that is the time you can come in and really help to impact change. It's like, how much do you want this? Because it can't be your way. It's got to be my way. I know this. I'm going to try to make it not so much a cookie cutter same to all. But the reality of it is, there's certain components that is a must. There's no, well, you can try this or that on. This is what you have to put in place to impact that difference. Period. End of story. Don't want to do it? I don't need to be banging my head up against the wall to go ahead and try to teach folks how to make this work, because I know how to make it work. You have to implement the change to make it happen. And or you have the other individual, just as Kim mentioned, who said, I'm seeing this, I'm seeing the marketplace, I'm going to get ahead of it. I'm ahead of it. I want to do whatever that I can to wrap my arms around this so that way I'm strategizing, I'm ahead of the game, I'm able to go ahead, impact sales. At the end of the day, it's about sales. Finance is, I mean, every customer is in a certain bucket. It's every deal that matters. Every car deal that matters. That's the dealer that is a forward thinker that sees the advantage of controlling that book of business. And they're telling me all day long, okay, Becky, don't educate these guys. I like them, but they're sending customers down the street to my dealership because I'm prepared to put car deals together. And that's what you have. It's one or the other.
Yeah,
It's one or the other. Are they asking more questions? I think now they're I don't see where they don't have a choice. I mean, we're getting more and more customers that are coming in with subprime, whether they think so or not. And if they don't think so, then somebody, let's face it, salespeople are sending customers out of the dealership, walking to another competitor down the street. And that's what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, when you
The
look
dealer
at
group I'm with now, that is exactly what happened.
really,
In the middle of the back and forth, and I said, listen, your customers that you have now are becoming less than, and the customers that I know how to handle are becoming more than. You choose.
You
Right.
choose. It goes so I'm training
I'm creeping away.
It's like either you guys are going to get this or you're not going to get it. It's either for you or not. There's certain things, best practices that you put in place to make a change. So a dealer says to me, okay, I'm going to bring you in. How long is this going to take for me to see results? What do you think I said, Kim?
I don't.
I said, here's how this
why
will
is it-
work.
Yeah.
If in fact you adhere
To-
we're not robotic here, but if
Right.
in the event you adhere to this process,
Yeah.
these strategies and techniques, and you're going to hear every bellyache, you're going to hear every reason why I'm a crazy person. This woman's out for. What does she know, boss? Get rid of her. This is the craziest stuff I've ever heard in my life. Well, I said now, or it could be the next option. The next option is I can work on buy-in. Right. So if I'm working on buy-in, hey, we can try that out too. So that'll take about a year. Or the other, you'll probably see results immediately. Well, at least within 30 days or 60 days. You tell me how you want to do it. So what do you think Bill says to Becky? We're going to do option one.
Yeah.
And I said, let me tell you something. You got to tell them it's on my bus.
That's right.
Or you got to go maybe do something different. And it's unfortunate, but that's what you've got to do. You've got to make that decision. And that's what happens.
and that's, I guess, around the ownership and management, because we know they're all about results. You know, obviously it's their bat and ball, but they've basically got to determine what they want to do and then hold the feet to the fire. Like you can go in there and train for a year, to your point, or even train for a week, but if they're not changing anything, then it's what's the point of it? I mean, I remember, what was it, a couple of years ago, I was asked for a dealer to come in and train Foursquare, and I almost didn't go in. I'm like, why are we training Foursquare in 2022? Like, to me, it made no sense. Like, but at the same time, it's not to say that the tactic is bad. It's like, what are you going to force these people to do? If you have a process, and we can train that, but if you're telling me this is the only way to do it and I won't do that, then what's the point of it? Like, it's not going to help anybody. And I think that's a question management really needs to ask. If they want to capture that 50% of buyers they're missing right now, which I think in 2024 is a more important problem than ever, because it's not like people have less inventory, they have more. they can't miss 50% of their opportunities. So they really got to look at it and say, am I happy with half at a discounted price because people aren't paying full price anymore? So, I mean, I guess the question there is, when ownership hears from one of you two wonderful ladies who knows what you're doing, what questions should they be asking? Like, other than how long is it going to take? Like, what questions should they be asking that they're not?
How soon can you get here?
Do you have time available today to come help me? I'm drowning.
Yeah, it's overall like, if I'm having a dealer meeting, the first thing I'm extracting usually is the current situation. Obviously, I need to understand the landscape so that I can speak to them in their language, and it's either you see a benefit or you don't see a benefit, and if you do, I'm with Becky, 1,000%. All of the dealerships that I've ever worked with that have gotten it quickly and over an extended period of time have continued to build up their department and are doing great right now, and have made career people in their dealerships that have stuck with them because the process is good and everybody's making money and they're happy. In all of those situations, it was very clearly laid out in front of me when I arrived. We are doing this. I could almost quote you the statement. Guys,
yes,
gals, but they never say gals. Guys, we are doing this. And it's like the look across the boardroom. This is Kim. Let's go.
amen.
You know what I mean? And
Amen.
if it wasn't, we are doing this, if that wasn't stay, it was like, okay, Kim, so we're gonna, start off the day with the prime finance managers. Let's see what they think. And I'm like, yeah, I'll come. We could try this, but it's going to be awfully expensive for me to show up and try to convince people to change, that don't want to change. Nobody does. I don't want to change either. Nobody wants to change. But if they're not, if they're not told this is what's happening, we have to do this. It's a lot of effort on my part, and I don't mind spending the time to, exactly, Becky nailed it right on the head, to go over the stats and convince you the whys, and to show you what you're losing, and to show you what's available in terms of, leveling up your career, let alone just making double the amount of money you made last month. Come on, if that doesn't make y'all want to change, I don't know. So it's a short conversation that I have. And then either everybody gets on board or they don't. There's no sense in me coming back if everybody's not on board. I look back, so I won't go back.
Fair enough.
Because they're like,
I should just have to fire these guys.
These guys got to go.
It's all on you, because it's like, if they're not going to go ahead and implement some of this, how do they expect it to change? How do they expect the impact? It's not going to happen without doing something. You got to do something to make it happen. And so sometimes you just have to fire these folks, because you can't be on me. You can't be on Kim.
And we're obviously also, we were talking a little bit about data. And I know this has become kind of a big deal this year, both with compliance in the US market and probably eventually in Canada once we catch up, but also with data. I mean, I know there's a lot of data on customers, especially financial data. What safeguards do dealers need to put in place here? What do you think?
Well, I'll talk a little bit about the States. You can talk about what's going on there in your neck of the woods. I know that you don't have as many regulations as what we have here in the States, and also what dealers are pressed on. And it really, is dependent upon independent versus franchise versus federal regulations, state regulations, that sort of stuff. But even in independent stores, I mean, there are more. We have the CFPB, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, who's also scrutinizing independent dealers because they see them as a threat. And then we also have, of course, your franchise dealers, FTC, that also mandates certain best practices, and that is safeguarding and making sure that the information that we're gathering from the customer is in a secured environment. So back in the day, Kim, when we would gather customers' information on our iPhone, simply, hey, just go ahead and send us and scan us, take a copy of your driver's license or, your social security card, just go ahead and send that to me and we'll be good to go. Those days are over. We cannot go ahead and take customer information. In fact, you don't want any customer information at all on anyone's personal cell phone. Everything must be guarded and uploaded to a secured server. So it gets a bit tricky, really, because as you know, sometimes customers they don't have certain access to certain things. And today, more so than ever, we want to make sure too, when I talk about data, while we're at it, ID verification and how critical ID verification is, especially when it comes to whoever that you're dealing with. And I don't really kind of see that as something that's part of the process to me. I want to know who I'm dealing with. I want to know, is that person who they say that they are? I want to know that information as earlier on as possible. And so we also have here in the States, I don't know if it's in Canada, you could tell me, TurboPass. I love TurboPass in that what that is allowing us to do is an ID verification plus verification of proof of income quickly. And so this is so important to make sure that, again, this customer is who they say that they are. We have companies like Gather Technology that is also helping with ID verification, insurance, and confirming insurance and making sure that that vehicle has proper insurance by the time they take delivery, which is probably not something that you deal with so much in Canada. I think do you still have that 2-day, 3-day wait time period before the customer takes delivery, or are you doing more spot deliveries? I'm not exactly sure. I don't think you're quite there yet.
No.
And now when I say spot delivery, I'm not saying that the vehicle hadn't been approved by a lender necessarily so, but at times we may have a lender approval, but we'll likely go someplace else. But at the same token, we need to make sure that customers have full coverage insurance before they leave the dealership, that sort of stuff. So those technologies are available now to assure that this person is who they say that they are. It is important to know that, hey, we have valid insurance. And now also, as Ian pointed out, we need to make sure that all the information is tucked nicely away on a secured server. Talk about fun.
Yeah. Regulation in Canada, we just need way more. I don't know how the finance office in Canada hasn't been under stricter regulations since even in prime, let alone non-prime. There's a lot of, there's a lot that we have to do here. So it's an opportunity. And I've spoken to a lot of people in the finance side of the business just on that subject matter. Ava Credit does a lot of, they're getting into the ID verification. I believe there's a couple other technologies. That's the one that I use. Matching the customer uploads their ID to their secured site and has to do, the side selfies and the whole thing to verify ID. And I don't know if it's the same technology that you referred to, Becky, but there's a Honda dealer I do business with in Ontario, and he's got this wicked, and I can't remember the name of it, but they scan an ID and it runs through, I swear it goes to the FBI.
I think, it does. There's some things that it does, but it's almost like a government ID check verification, and it does do some background stuff and that sort of stuff just to make sure that you're not some sort of a gangster, fraudster, whatever. And I think the dealer can actually, there are different levels of secure. They can secure the ID and assuring that customer is who they are. But again, at the end of the day, here in the States, we have to do a better job It used to be, and I'm sure it still is in Canada, customer could come in with a check made out for the exact amount. Have a nice day. See you later.
Oh,
And
okay.
it was like, what are we doing? What do you mean, what are we doing? Did anyone validate that that person is who they see that they are? We just taking them for their word because they gave us a check. We've never had any problem here, Becky. And I
Yeah.
can tell you how many times a deal has taken a check and sent the customer out the dealership and come to find out it was a credit fraud. And they're doing everything that they can to go ahead and get their car back. And it gets pretty ugly. So it's important for a dealer to validate this information. I can tell you how many times where in one time a customer whose credit was breached. The dealer actually ended up selling that customer, that individual, whatever fraudster, a car, only to find out that the credit belonged to somebody else. Due diligence. It's really, we've got to make sure our ducks are in a row. Due diligence to make sure again that we're checking this. And some dealers are good at it. Some dealers,
Right.
they're just not there yet.
I agree.
Well, we're out of time. It's a fun show. Definitely have to do more, I guess, on credit verification. Maybe I don't know much about that area, but definitely interesting. Any final thoughts, Kim?
No, just as always, thank you so much for having me. And Becky, it's always a pleasure hanging out with you.
Always a pleasure.
It's such a good time. Kindred spirits. Yeah, no, it's great. Great, Ian. Thanks so much.
No worries.
Love being on your show.
Rock and roll. Have yourself a great week. And if you are looking to get into subprime and you're committed, if you're in Canada, Kim McPherson, and if you're in the US, Becky can definitely help you with thoughts on that. They're both experts in this field, know way more than I do, but you gotta, put your ass on the line and want to do it. Otherwise, don't waste your time. It would be a waste of everyone's time. It's not going to get done. And don't miss out on that, 40% of the market that maybe you're not paying attention to now. I think that's a pretty ridiculously big number to not pay attention to. Anyway, that's all for me. Have yourself a great week. Here we go.